The 2022 Virtual Business Conference, February 25th. Scott Mitchell. Connecting communities through events.
I'm delighted to introduce Scott Mitchell. Scott is a USPTA Master Professional and is currently the CEO for Premier Tennis International, providing innovative and profitable solutions for clubs and facilities and professional tournaments. Scott has over 30 years experience leading operations at private clubs, public facilities, and resorts. Under his leadership, the $100,000 Dow Tennis Classic achieved the USTA Gold Star standard 4 straight years and has become the benchmark of all pro circuit events. In 2019, he helped the tournament increase almost $500,000 in revenue from sponsorship and ticket sales. For all these reasons, Scott is a much sought after speaker, and I give you Scott Mitchell.
Thanks, Kevin, and thanks everybody for joining. I know this is going to be a lot of information, so we may not have a ton of time for questions at the end, so I'll give you my information. Write that down, the website, phone number. You can email me at scott@premiertennisconsulting.com. Happy to answer any questions, because it's, like I said, it's a lot of information. I want to try to help connect communities through the events that you do at your location. So some of the information that we're going to cover: strategic planning, everything that we do and everything that we mention to clubs and facilities is all about having a strategic objective. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the best avenues that work for you, telling your story and who do you tell it to, what does it mean, and then the process and who needs to be helping you, what's their roles, and then what do we do after an event's over? Not only with assessing how it went with your team, but also following up with sponsors and patrons and your members that were involved in the activity. So as you think about your events or even managing facilities, if you're in that role, the 3 Ps, I've always talked about the 3 Ps: people, product, and process. Everything that you do with your event, everything that you do within the facility fit into one of those 3 buckets. So when you're thinking about putting together an event or a social or a tournament, try to think about what strategic value, what do we want to gain from hosting this event or a tournament, and then discuss with your team, come up with a strategy behind it. And the first couple of things that you want to talk about is what's our end result. And this is where I find the missing pieces with most of the places that we work with or the pros that we talk with, is they want to just do an event or a social just to do it. They think it's fun, they think it's neat, they think that that's what membership is looking for. But for us, it's got to drive to an end result. So maybe you want to impact a charity that's in your area, or maybe you want to grow a new program or make your members or customers aware of a new program, or maybe you want to drive membership itself. There's got to be a reason for what you want to do before you just start to think about doing an event or a social and so forth. For me, and for probably many of you, the lowest hanging fruit are the new players to the game. We know that those that are engaged or already involved in programming or leagues or tournaments, they're going to stay engaged. You want to make sure you're taking care of them for sure. But there's a whole slew of people out there that really could benefit from coming through your doors, but they just need a reason to. They need to give that little push. So focusing in on those new players and driving them to really understand what your facility is and then getting them there to enjoy it. One of the things as tennis professionals we do is we tend to sell the what, which is we sell tennis. And in fact, we don't necessarily sell the why or the impact that we're trying to make in the community. So if you haven't seen it already, Simon Sinek does a great short video of Start With Why. But we really want to sell why we're doing things. What's the impact that we're trying to make in the community? Maybe you're trying to partner with a charity. You're using the avenue of tennis, but you're not really necessarily trying to sell tennis. You're trying to sell the charity that you're trying to support. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in a little bit, about telling your story. So once you've decided that we want to do an event or whatever it is, you want to think about what's the best avenue. Is it doing an event? Is it doing a social and doing a tournament? There needs to be a strategic reason for what you do, and it needs to meet a specific desire at your club. Those 2 things are a must. Now, to us, there's a complete difference between events, socials, and tournaments. And a lot of times we merge these together. Sometimes we use the word social when we really mean events and so forth. But to us, there's a big difference. So events, when we do events or when we speak with clubs and they're thinking about, the connection, the experience side of things, events have to be profitable to us. They need to grow, and they're driving growth of an awareness, like we talked about. Maybe it's membership. You're trying to grow membership. Maybe you're trying to invite outside people from outside, maybe in a 50-mile radius, to come and view your club. Maybe it's a retirement community, or maybe you're just simply in the community and just want to grow your customer base. So when you set up this, there's a strategic pathway that you're trying to reach. There's a goal that you're trying, a demographic goal that you're trying to reach. But you're also, that when you put this on, it has to be profitable. To us, events have to be profitable. And the difference between that and a social is the socials can break even. They can even lose money in some cases because there's an ROI down the road. So again, you're still trying to drive a specific awareness, but maybe you're trying to reach out and connect members that are already there. Maybe it's a program that you're trying to highlight. Maybe it's a new league or an amenity where it's okay to lose money by hosting the social, because you're going to make up the revenue that you lost when they sign up for the new league or the new program, or maybe elevating their membership. So you're looking at that with realizing that, look, we're going to put on this social, we're going to invite 60 people or whatever it would be. We're going to do a really, really good job. We're going to have some food and wine and that kind of stuff. And we're okay with losing a little bit of money because the goal is to get them registered for something else down the road. And then tournaments. Again, for us, tournaments need to be profitable. I think many of us, if you really sat down and thought about your tournaments that you run, adults or juniors, and again, the formats can change a little bit and make it a little bit easier for you, especially if you're doing a one-day. But tournaments in the normal sense that we've used for years, if you really calculated all the time that you spent doing the draws, getting the registrations, making the seeds, sitting there at the desk and putting matches out and so forth, and being there to clean up and get the court set every day, you probably, and if you calculated all of that, which you should, you probably find out that you're losing a lot of money when you run tournaments. And our normal break even is about 100 participants in most of our tournaments. If we're not doing that, we're probably losing quite a bit of money. But they still, again, should be strategic in nature. It could be engaging players on your property, just getting them there to view the property itself. It could be giving your current members playing opportunities against people that don't come to your club on a regular basis. So one of the things, if you look at this little flyer to the right, we used to host, and I don't know if they still do at the Landings Club, the USTA Men's National 55s. And we used to host that literally for one reason, and it was to drive competitive players that are engaged in our sport already to come and visit the location in hopes that maybe down the road, remember, these are players that are 55 or older, either they're retired or they're about to be retired, that they can now view what we offer at the club, and in hope down the road would get them to move onto the island and become a member. That was our strategic goal with hosting this. And so when they were there, we made them members for the weekend, or in this case, a member for the week, because it was a week-long tournament. So we gave them, access to cards that gave them access to buying at the clubhouses. We had 4 clubhouses, going to play golf and getting a tour of the facilities, going over to the fitness center. So we gave them access to this for the entire time they were there because we wanted to sell the property. But that was really the only reason we were hosting the tournament. I mean, we could host any kind of tournament. It was fun. It was great tennis, but there was a strategic reason for us to do so. So once you've decided on what that avenue is it an event? Again, remember, events need to make money. Is it a social, or is it a tournament? Now it's trying to tell your story. And there's a couple different ways or avenues that you want to tell the story. So who are you telling the story to? Is it to your members and guests? Is it the community? Is it your sponsors or partners that you want to have engaged in it? Or is it all of the above? And in many cases, it is all of the above. So when you think about Sponsorship. And I don't know how many of you out there have tried to deal with getting sponsors to help you at any level. Maybe it's just trying to get people to donate stuff so it's in kind, or maybe it's just $100 or $200, or like with some of our events, which we're dealing with six-figure sponsors or partners is what we call them. It's a tough avenue to go down, but I want to share some of the things that sponsors are looking at, because what we need to make sure that you understand is, as much as we love tennis, most of your sponsors aren't really interested in tennis. They're not really interested necessarily in the activity. They're looking for one of two things, and maybe both, but how do you make it, or what impact do you make in the community? Is it a charity that you're supporting, or outreach within the schools? What was the impact that you make in the community through these events or socials that you're doing? And how do you get me in front of new customers or future customers? How do you grow my business? Or how do you give me brand recognition? Those are the two avenues that your sponsors are looking for. And so if you're sitting there trying to put together a packet of information that says, hey, we love tennis, this is great, we have the best tennis players in town, all of that, but there's no mention of the impact in the community that you're trying to make, or no information that gears them towards being involved in this event, gets you in front of this many people, you're losing them within the first couple of sentences of your pitch to them. So like I said, they want to be involved in at least one of these, but in a lot of cases, it's both. So make sure when you set up your packets, when you set up your communication or your talking points with your team, these are the things that you're focused in on, so that you can share a very easy, succinct communication with everybody on your team, with those people that you're reaching out to. When you think about tennis, tennis has always been a little bit of a tough sell in our country, right? Even though it's one of the most viewed sports out there around the world, and one of the most played sports around the world, in the US, it's not. It struggles behind many, many other sports. So if you can look, the average of the men's NCAA basketball, and last year was 17 million that watched that. About 4 million watched the women's. The US Open in 2021, the men was about 2 million that watched that, and then somewhere close to 3.5 million watched the women's tournament. So you can see the numbers really are low. Now they're still pretty good, obviously, with 2 million or 3.5 million watching tennis, which is good numbers. But when you compare it to some of the other sports, and the reason I bring this up is because, remember, your sponsors, your partners that you're going out to talk to, have a variety of different avenues for them to tell their story. And we've got to make sure that if it's only thinking about the eyeballs on your events, this is at a high level. So we're, at a local level, we're looking at, there might be 100, maybe 1,000 people that are looking at it. So think about how you want to set up your events or your socials that will get the most eyeballs and the coolest little aspects, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute, for those sponsors or partners out there that might be interested in being a part of your event. So when you start to think about valuing the sponsorship levels, and the majority of the time, everybody sets up sponsor levels, right? So you can be, the Australian Open at this level, the US Open at this level, or, some places use bronze, silver, and gold, but it needs to also be strategic. And I guess my overall theme for our presentation here is we need to try to get out of just doing things to do things. And I think we've done really well with that, but we've got to look at things a little bit differently as we go forward. So when you're looking at putting together these packages, really think about the value of that asset that you're trying to sell. And we do everything from programs to commercials to video boards to parking spaces. How many parking spaces do we have in the that we're going to open up for sponsors to park in, and what's the value we want to put on that? Is it $10, $20? All of that builds up to what the package would be. So these are some examples. They're not necessarily correct in what you may want to do, but I just kind of threw some things together. So, putting a company on your website with a link, for us, it could be around $250 for that one link for that partner. If we're doing commercials through our streaming channels, it could be up to $10,000. If we're one of our recent events that we're doing is going to be on ESPN, and so the ESPN value for being on TV is maybe around $100,000. So what you're trying to do is build these packages so that you can understand when you go to talk to them, you have a very clear conversation of why at this level, what they get, why does it make up that amount that you're asking for? And then what we do is, as you can see with the blacked out part of this, and this is a fictitious spreadsheet here. We just plugged in numbers for you, but you know, if somebody is paying $1,000, what pieces of those are part of that package? And you can see from here, if they're only going to be $1,000 sponsor, TV commercials and streaming and banner placement on our streaming service, or commercials, banners on the commercial side, those aren't available at the $1,000, maybe not even at the $5,000. So those are the kind of things that you need to kind of build into the packages. We always have spreadsheets like this that makes it easy for our team to have a conversation with our sponsors. So now, as you've got all this and you've built your assets, and remember, there's the assets that you have to sell, which means parking spaces, pieces of buildings or tents where you could put a brand on it, or a logo on it. All of that, you want to look around your facility and see, where can I brand things, and I build that into my package. Once I've done that and I've got my assets built and I've got the valuations to all of that, then I start putting it into a package, and that can be easily shared with potential partners or sponsors. And so this is an idea of one that we would put together. Remember, you want to get the most important information up first, and you want to get that stuff, and you don't need a 20 or 30 page packet. You want to keep it simple, and you want to get all the, like I said, all the important stuff up right away, because you got one quick second. They're going to look through that for 2 minutes, and if they don't see what's going to be a big piece or a value to them, they're going to toss it and move on. So make sure you give them the benefits of being a partner. What's the media exposure? What's the eyeballs that they're going to have on them through the event? What's the impact that you're making? And maybe some special VIP access for them to be involved in as well. Again, a little bit deeper with the eyeballs, right? So we're going to be on ESPN, but you know, maybe it's Tennis Channel or Tennis One. What are the broadcasts? What are the markets that you're going to be in? What are the opportunities for them to sell their brand through those kind of things? And if it's just your local event there at the club, are you doing a brochure? Do you have stuff up on your website? Are you rolling things on your TVs around your lounges and your clubhouses that people can see small commercials? All of that, it should be part of your packet. And this that I'm showing you is a little bit more on a national or international scale, but just scale it down to meet your needs, and use all the assets that you have there from your website, TVs around, maybe doing a small little packet, like a little daily brochure that goes out, and it has all the mentions for the different brands or partners that you have. Make sure you mention the demographics, because your sponsors at higher levels are definitely going to want to watch what the demographics are that are going to be a part of that. And then we always add a little bit of the scheduling, right? So tennis is the focal point for what we're doing, but there's there's VIP clinics, there's pro-ams, there's cocktail parties, there's, nightly entertainment, meet and greets, there's all of this. Oh yeah, by the way, yeah, there's tennis still being played. But for us as tennis people, remember, the people that love our sport are going to come. The people that are at your club that love to play are going to come. How do you get the people that are on the fringes to come and be a part of that? Maybe they're new to the club, maybe they're beginners and never have played. What are some of the things that they're like, oh, that's pretty cool. It's not only about tennis, but I get to meet and greet, and there's a VIP dinner. I get to watch a little tennis. What are some of those other areas that you can see, that you can add, that will entice people to come? Now, if you're selling tickets to your event, again, if they're tennis players or tennis fans, they're going to come. What are the things that you can add with nightly entertainment? Maybe a business networking opportunity, which we do at almost all of our events, where we work with the Chamber of Commerce or another business organization in your town, and invite them to have their monthly meeting there on property during your event. those are ways to drive people to your event, along with entertainment, right? So up in Michigan, we did Jedi Mind Trip, huge following. We had them come in on a Friday night and play a concert for us after the matches were done, and it drove all the people that they normally sell tickets to, got them to come and view tennis, and which it probably never would have, and then enjoyed a concert afterwards. So now once you've put all that together, then you want to tell your story. And your story that you're telling, again, remember, depending on who it is, if it's your customer base, your members, your sponsors, out into the community, whatever it would be, start with what we don't feel comfortable with telling first. We tend to go and say, hey, I've got the Bryan brothers, they're coming to Innisbrook, you gotta, this is awesome, you gotta come. Instead, start with what the impact in the community is gonna be through the Bryan brothers being there. So for instance, this is again a made up impact center, but we're hosting an event in February that'll support the XYZ Center. It's gonna make a huge impact in our community through this first annual event. The XYZ Center does all of this. They impact these people on a daily basis and throughout the year. Here's what they do. So our focus really is the impact that we're trying to make in the community, and we tell that story first. And then we slowly start to say, look, you know, we're going to be hosting the XYZ Center Championships this date. It's going to have these people. We're thinking about this many spectators. And you really then try to tie in the story of the impact in the community with the tennis that you're going to put on. And I would do the same thing if I was doing a 3-day event at my club. What's the charity that we're trying to impact? People love to attach themselves to a story and be involved in a story. Not only your members, right? We're trying to, Habitat for Humanity is going to benefit from the event that we're going to do this weekend. People love to support things, not only your members, but the sponsors as well. And that's why the story that you tell has to be very impactful. And then you want to start to think about, like we said before, what are the other engagement opportunities that you're going to have through the week? Is TV, radio, and print going to be a part of it? Do you want the nightly entertainment, music, on and off court activities? Maybe there's a trivia element to it. All of that should be at the back of your packet as well. So now that we've thought about the information that we're doing and the avenue that we want to use within the events, socials, or tournament at the club, now we've got to think about what's the real business of racket sports? What are we in, and what are we trying to do within all that we do? And we talk about the experience. So we're in the service and hospitality business, and we're trying to make really, really good experiences for people that come through our doors. And the reason I mention that is you could have the best event, best thought out stuff, the tickets sold, but if people don't have a really good experience when they're there, even though the tennis was great, they're not going to tell that story back to other people for the next time you do it. And that's what we want. We want to think about, okay, we've got the event, we've got our sponsors, we've got all that taken care of. Now what are the other things that we need to be looking at? And I share this with a lot of the clubs and former pros that worked under me, is long after our members have left our tennis courts, they won't necessarily remember what we said during their lesson or the encounter, but they will always remember how they were treated or how they felt while they were there. So most of the experiences for people that will come to your events are going to be subconscious. They're not really even going to think about it. There's going to be times, like I said, maybe you've taught a lesson and Sally Mae's forehand is awesome. But if you were late to the lesson and, you know, the lights weren't on, or, you know, all those little things, those negatively impact their emotions or their experience. And so even though the lesson was great, she's going to walk away from that not being as thrilled about it as she could have. So we think about customer experiences, the attention to detail. And I'm a big fan of Disney, not because my kids love to go there or that they've got great rides necessarily, but because of what and they're not as good now, I'll be honest with you. They're not near as good as they are now as they were years ago, but making sure that everything impacts the experience on a subconscious level. So when you go to Disney, they constantly paint benches and areas. There are horse heads on Main Street. If you've ever been to Disney, there's 38 horse heads that are on Disney property down Main Street, and they paint 35 of those literally every day. Every single day they paint those. And the reason is because they've been worn a little bit. They want everybody to experience something as if it was a first day that the park had been open. So they go around and even sweep up leaves, because subconsciously leaves laying around on the ground, your mind doesn't look at that as leaves as much as it looks at trash. So they go around and they pick up constantly. They go to areas around where there's a little bit of a dead space, and they draw caricatures on the pavement with water. So they'll, in this case, Goofy or Mickey, just trying to, again, elevate the experience in areas that typically don't have a whole lot going on. So when you think about your clubs, are there lights out on your courts? Is there paint chipping maybe in the locker room or on the building? Is there trash in the parking lot? We all would love to have the parking lot to the right. But all of these things, even if it's one light bulb burned out, or trash bins, I see this all the time, trash bins at the side of a court overflowing with trash because we haven't cleaned them. All of that will be subconsciously, and sometimes consciously, because they'll walk over there and just be like, this is crazy, but it subconsciously impacts them and their experience there with you. So we've got to put a quick process in place as you go through setting up your events. Put your team down. What are their responsibilities? Make sure they understand where, you hear the phrase of always staying in your lane. What are their lanes that you want them to be in? Who's connecting with the sponsors, your members, whatever it would be? Who's handling the outreach and the community involvement, maybe entertainment? And who's tasked with just being on court, running the event or the social or the tournament? What are their roles? Hopefully you have enough people, or you can bring in some people from a volunteer role that will fit into all these different categories, because I know it's too many of us try to do all of these, and it's just simply impossible. And then, like we said, what are the additional pieces that are going to make your event really, really cool? What's the community involvement that you're looking for? Do you want to impact some service organizations? Or like what we do is we take players into different service organizations with our pro events. So we take them to Kiwanis, we do a military appreciation, we take them to schools. Who else needs to be involved in the community aspect? Is it TV, print, and radio? Do you want the USTA, your section involved, which I highly encourage you to do so, which also would impact your community tennis associations in your area as well. What's the outreach that you would like to do? We always try to do outreach into the schools. I think it's huge for us to make an impact in the kids in the schools. It will also give them a little bit of exposure to what you do at your facility, because remember, in schools, they're competing against, tennis is competing against basketball and frisbee and all of those things, and tennis typically isn't involved in the schools. So kids' days, invite speakers, all of those are going to impact your event. You want to add these to them. And then the entertainment. Do you want local bands playing? Do you want to do some fun stuff with like maybe a comedy act? We've had jump rope teams come to some of our events, and people are like, wow, because if you're selling tickets and you invite the jump rope team, well, mom's coming, dad's coming, grandparents are coming, so you're going to sell tickets as well. And then make sure that the B2B, the business to business or the business to customer aspect is still something that is really, really top of mind. What do you also need to provide for them that really makes it a cool opportunity? Because too many sponsors I hear all over the place, doesn't matter what level, if it's $100, $200, or six figures, is we felt like we gave our money, but we didn't really get anything in return. It was, a couple tickets and that was about it. So give them an opportunity to tell their story. Vendor booths, player parties, business outward, they can do corporate events while they're there with you. I would reach out to, here in the Tampa area, what we do is we'll reach out to, the Bucks, the Rays, the Lightning, to try to say, hey, look, we want to do activation areas and get people not only here for tennis and what we're offering, but also get aware of what you offer within your disciplines and your sports. So we invite them to come on board as well. And then once you've had your event, it's over and everything hopefully went well for you, what's the follow-up? Who's doing what? Make sure that everybody has again a role that they're playing. So I don't want everybody to be communicating out to sponsors. It should be the specific people that dealt with them, and then it shouldn't be like if I've got 3 people that are in the sponsorship committee plus myself. It can't be all 4 of us reaching out to them over the course of a day or two. it should be strategic. Maybe the first email or phone call comes from me, and then a follow-up 2 or 3 days later comes from my director of partner relations. So come up with a plan for that. Maybe there's a short survey that goes out. I wouldn't do anything more than 5 questions, but make sure you're getting together with your sponsors. We have a goal with a lot of our events is that we want to try to secure 60% or more of our sponsors, or if it's just a member guest or whatever, 60% or more of those members or guests to come back for the next time we do it. So we do a lot of conversations, a lot of networking why we're doing the event, because that's when they're the most excited. They're really into it. They're having a ball. That's a great time to secure them for the next one you do or the following year. And then don't be shy. Always assess how you think it went. Get everybody that was involved to send you a report. Get them involved in the process of here's what worked, here's what didn't work, and this is what we're going to absolutely do away with next year. So everybody writes a report, set a time to meet individually and then meet as a big group. And then, like I said, what are we going to add for the next time we do it? What are we taking out, and what worked, but we want to adjust it a little bit. And then I always say, look, you always want to improve, and that's a tough thing. If you did something, you knocked it out of the park, you know, it's hard to improve on something that you knocked out of the park, but you've got to find a way to do so, because your competitors are always trying to do better. And when you ask Disney, if you go to the Disney executives, for instance, and you say, look, who's your competitor? Most of us would probably say, well, you know, it's the SeaWorlds of the world, of the worlds, or it's the Universal Studios and all those kind of things, where Disney said, actually, no, they don't worry about the parks. Their competitor, in their view, is everybody that communicates with their customer, or what they call their guest. So that's the TVs, the iPhones, the other sports, Amazon, where people are buying stuff, or the radios, phone companies. Phone companies was one of the top answers from them. Anybody that speaks to their customers. So the phone company, how does that conversation happen? Is it really pleasant? Is it a great experience? Well, if it is, that's taking customers' time from them being involved in Disney in a variety of different ways, either at the parks or through some of their avenues of streaming or whatever it would be. So they look at, believe it or not, mostly companies that are outside the park world. And I always tell this as well, is remember, your customers, your members can spend their money anywhere. Why would they continue to do it with you? So start thinking about what are the aspects that you can put into place that will keep them going, wow, that was money well spent. So one of the things that if you ask, so over 70% of the people that come to Disney in the Disney parks, at least in Disney World, are repeat customers. And if you've ever been to Disney, you know how expensive that is. But when you ask them about the price of it, it's way down the list. You don't hear too many people coming away from Disney going, wow, that was expensive, I don't think I'm going to return. They may say it was expensive, but they feel like the value was so much higher than what they paid that they're going to come back. And they have well over 70% that do so, even with their outrageous prices. So as a reminder, quickly wrapping up, is start with a strategic plan. What's the element that you want to try to solve? Is it working with a charity? Is it driving a new program or trying to grow membership? What's that avenue that you want to impact the community or your club with? Then we're thinking about what's the avenue that we're going to do that. Is it the events? Is it the socials? Is it the tournaments? All of them need to be strategic in nature and have a desired goal by once you do it, what's the action item that you want them to take away from? I want to hold an event, a member guest, because I want those guests to become members. Or I'm going to hold this social because I want at the end of it, those people to sign up for the leagues. And then make sure you're telling your story out into the public, out to your customers, out to your members. And then make sure, what are you thinking about when it comes to your sponsors? And again, lastly, is we're in the service business. We're the service industry. So making an impact on people in a variety of different ways, focusing on the 3 Ps. This is one of the things, if you take away from this is the 3 Ps, that's going to be huge for you. And the last couple things, and I'll scroll through this again real quick because I want to get some questions, is think about trying to tell the story around the impact that you're making, not only around what you're doing, which is we're hosting a tennis event. It's what's the impact that we're trying to make. That resonates with people. And the last story is that's how Apple phones, that's how they sell, right? They tell this story of what they do. Oh, and we do this through Apple phone, buy an Apple phone. But like I said, Simon Sinek has a great little piece. There's a link at the bottom for you if you want to take a look at it. It's a great little, I think it's maybe a 6 or an 8 minute video clip. So make sure you watch that. And we have time, Pat, I think, for a few questions. But if not, remember, here's my contact information. You can always email me. You can happy to have a phone call because I know we ran through this quickly. We had just a little bit of time, but I wanted to get out there because there's a lot of opportunities for us. We've seen great growth in our industry over the last couple of years, unfortunately through the pandemic. But let's start to put things in that will engage your customers, your members, or people to your facility so we don't lose them now that things are starting to open back up. Because remember, one of the great things that we had is tennis didn't have anything to compete with. They couldn't go play basketball. They couldn't do the leagues. They couldn't go to the movies. We had this open canister of things to just flood into us. If we're connecting with people, they're going to stay with you. The ones that just came on board the last couple of years, they will stay with you if you're thinking about how to connect your community, how to connect your club with those people that came through. So happy to take any questions, Pat. I don't know if there's any out there.
At this point, we do not have any questions. Scott, this has been fantastic. I love a lot of your messages, but the last message of, boy, we got a golden opportunity with all the people that we got in the last year and a half. Now we got to keep them. And you sure have shown some great ways to keep people engaged and to keep them. This was really fantastic.
Well, I appreciate it.
Everybody, we see Scott's information here. If you have questions for him, I know a lot of people have said already, great job, and they're saying they want to rewatch it to get more of your information. I know this was a lot of information in 40 minutes, but it was excellent, Scott. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can send, Pat, if you want, I can send this deck out to you, and you can send it to anybody that would like to get the whole deck, because I know we flew through some of those slides towards the end.
Fantastic. And some people have asked about how do they rewatch this? Everybody, you'll get an automated response from the coach's clinic about if you want to rewatch any of the ones you attended during the day. So that comes very simple. Somebody else asked about sharing the slides. We'll find a way to do that and to have the share.
Yep, I'll get it to you and you can share. They can always email me and I can send it to them that way as well.